Hello everyone, my name is Anna Hope and welcome to Feel Russian channel. And in today's video, I just decided to sit and talk with you and to answer probably one of the most frequently asked questions: why don't Russian people protest? I got these questions quite often under my videos from people all over the world, mostly from the States and from Europe. And I just decided to make a video where I reply to this question, but from the historical background, because I'll tell you honestly, I'm not strong at the politics. I'm not interested in the politics at all and never was. But I'm interested in history, and as far as you know, I'm a guide in St. Petersburg, Russia. That's why I just decided to look at the situation from the historical perspective. More than that, I got so many comments from you, and you told me that you are interested in Russian culture and history, and somehow you are interested to understand Russian people better, to understand their mentality, in order, to realize what's going on now, or what's the reason of the current situation. I just want to start from one thing. So on the other hand, people are saying that everyone, is the same, that people all over the world are the same. Because they want only one thing. People from all over the world just want to be happy, they want happiness. But from the other hand, I believe that we are all different because we have a completely different history. We have a completely different historical background. And I also believe that it influences us a lot. So still the memory of our ancestors, like the genetic memory, it's in our blood. If we talk, for example, about US, US is a democratic country because it consists of adventurous people, historically people who were adventurous, who wanted to risk, and those who were able to face with this risk, who were able to leave everything behind them and to start a new life from the scratch. People who were creative, talented, who were hustling and bustling to start something new and to be successful later on in a new country. If we talk about Europe and mostly about France, the history of France is known for its revolution, and the revolution in France happened in the 18th century. And in comparison with that, the revolution in Russia started only at the beginning of the 20th century in 1917. 200 years, and it's such a big difference because people in Europe, in the States, they know what the freedom is. They know the taste of freedom. But I honestly, believe that Russia is not a democratic country at all, and it never was. Russia was always a monarchy, and it still is. The history of the Russian monarchy started in 1721, so it's the 18th century, and officially it lasted before the revolution in 1917, so almost 200 years. And I will remember you, it's a genetic memory. 200 years people lived under the power of the Tsar. And what I feel, that after the revolution in Russia, after Bolsheviks came to power, after the USSR appeared, Russia didn't stop being a monarchy, but the name of this monarch just changed. It was not the emperor of anymore. It was the state secretary, I suppose it was called in English. So the new leader just appeared in the country, and they gave him a new name like Lenin, Stalin, but it was still monarchy. If we look back at the people's belief, Russian people believe that The Tsar, he is a mediator of a god on the earth, and they have to obey the Tsar. And they believed in the sacral power somehow given to the Tsar by God. So I made a video some time ago about the Hermitage Museum, and the thing is, part of the Hermitage Museum is the Winter Palace, the official residence of the Romanovs. And if you look at this Winter Palace, if you look to these beautiful platforms that decorate the palace, even a teeny tiny detail, they are just showing and underlining the sacral power and the comparison between God and between the Tsar. And more than that, in Russia there is an expression, or there was an expression, people call the Tsar Tsar Batyushka. It means like Tsar, our father, or if it was Tsarina, they called it Tsarina Matushka, or Tsarina, our mother. And even in the name, even in the language, there is so much meaning. It means that people all over Russia, like the whole Russian population, they believe that they are children of the Tsar, and they believe that the Tsar or Tsarina are taking care about them. And probably sometimes, it sounds funny, it sounds ridiculous, but people really believe that the Tsar will protect them, the Tsar will save them. And if there was the time of struggles for many people of Russia, they just strongly believe that this is only because the Tsar doesn't know about their struggles. But once he will get to know, he will come and decide, he will come and solve everything. They will not struggle anymore. Or they just believe that all their struggles are coming from the noblemen or coming from the ministers who are doing something wrong. But the Tsar is always on their side. Just imagine such a belief in the sacral power of the emperor. When when any Tsar in Russia died, people were crying, because it's like their father died. You would talk about crying after the death of the Tsar. My grandmother, she told me she was a teenager at the time when Stalin died. And she told me about the day of his funeral. She told me that the whole country was in grief. The whole country was crying. People were feeling that they just lost their father, the father of the nation, and they didn't have any idea how are they going to live without Stalin. And probably if you watch the documentaries, if you read some historical books, you know that Stalin is one of the cruelest leaders in the 20th century. So during his reign, died people even more than the number of people during Second World War. They were killed or died in the concentration camps, and the whole country lived just in fear. But at his funeral, the whole country was crying, and they didn't know what they're gonna do without the father of the nation. From this point, another point is following, is the way to rule the country. I just remember when I'm guiding my tourists in Peter and Paul Cathedral. This is the place in St. Petersburg where all Russian Tsars are buried, the Tsars from the Romanovs family. And when we're just coming from tomb to tomb, talking about the life of this emperor, I usually tell to my tourists that there are two ways, and there are, I suppose, only two ways to rule the country, in Russia, of course, is to rule country by stick or to rule country by carrot. Stick and carrot. But in Russia, only But in Russia, the emperors who rule country with a stick always win. Those who rule country with a carrot fail, always. I will give you some examples. A Russian emperor, Peter the Great. Probably you've heard this name, he's famous. He was the one who founded St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg. There are so many monuments in St. Petersburg dedicated to this emperor. Now everyone is glorifying him, and every like a child knows its name. But if we look back at the history, he was one of the cruelest, he was one of the toughest Tsar, and many people died under his reign. Many people even died under while constructing St. Petersburg. But at the same time, his name is in history, and nowadays everyone is glorifying him, and it seems everyone forgot like, you know, all these cruelest things that he did. Another example of the stick emperor, I would say Stalin. He was the one who really ruled country with a stick. You know, there were a lot of repressions, people lived in fear, and no one was able, you know, to say a word against, because everyone was so much scared of it. So let me give you some examples of those who ruled country with a carrot. Probably the names will not tell you anything, but anyway, it's history and it's useful to know to understand what's going on in Russia. So one of the Tsar is Alexander II. He was one of the kindest Tsar. He was so open-minded and he was ready to change the country. He made so many reforms. He was the one who abolished serfdom. Believe me or not, in 1861 till 1861, there was serfdom in Russia. There were serfs who were serving to the honor in the 19th century, in the middle of the 19th century. So he was the Tsar who abolished serfdom. And guess what happened? He was assassinated by the terrorists. And more than that, during his life, had 7 attempts on it. So, another example of a carrot Tsar, last Tsar of Russia, Nicolas II. So what happened? He was a very kind, he was a very good family man. He was so polite with everyone, but he was not strict, strong, and tough enough to rule Russia, because Russia, as a country, Russian people, they don't understand carrots, only stick. During his reign, 3 revolutions happened. After second revolution, he abdicated from the throne, and later on, he and his family was very cruelly assassinated. And I gave you example what it means to rule country with a stick and carrot. Russian people, they just need a strong leader, someone who they will obey, who they will follow to, and they just need it. I don't know how to explain, just by the history. Till 1861, there were 23 million serfs in Russia. In some parts of the country, there were about 69% of the population of people who were not free and who had their honors. And as far as I already told you, Russian Emperor Alexander II, he abolished serfdom in Russia. From one hand, probably you imagine people who are very happy, who, you know, jumping and hugging each other and congratulating each other with the freedom that was given. But everything, you know, was vice versa, because people were in grief. They didn't know what to do with their lives. They didn't know what to do with their freedom. And most of these people, they chose to stay with their honor. They chose to serve instead of being free. And I think there are, you know, there is a lot of meaning in this fact. And there is a lot of truth about Russian mentality and about Russian people. So slowly out of these serfs who were liberated, who got their freedom, appeared some, businessmen who started hustling, bustling, earning money. Somehow they became really rich. They opened their plants, they opened their own factories, and they became really successful starting from the scratch. But the revolution happened in Russia. The revolution of 1917, and all people who had money, who were successful, they became the enemies, and they all either emigrated from the country or were killed and repressed. And I would say that the best people of Russia, the best, first of all, educated, well-behaved, and who had the ability to think and had the critical thinking. Again, they either left Russia, they emigrated, or they were killed or repressed. And somehow people, I would say 90% of the people who nowadays live in Russia are the descendants of the workers and the peasants who stayed in a new country called USSR. So in order to sum up what I've already said, I'd say that people who are asking why don't Russian protest, they just don't simply understand Russian people, Russian mentality, and Russian history, because Russia was never a democratic country. Russia was always, and it still is, a monarchy. Russia needs a strong leader who they will follow to, who they will obey, who they will dedicate their lives, someone, who knows better, because Russian people just simply don't know what to do with their freedom and how to use it. I hope this video was helpful for you, and it helped you to understand Russian mentality a little bit better. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Пока-пока.